Good morning to you all and welcome. Once again, this year to our presentation of annual results, Mapfre is reporting on financial year 2015 here. This is the format as usual. First of all, we'll hear from the chairman of Mapfre. He'll give you some pointers to the performance of the key financials during the last financial year. Following that, our Vice Chairman, Esteban Tejera, will give you more detailed information. It will take you more into the key financials for 2015. And after that, the Chairman of Mapfre, once again, will take the floor. Antonio Huertas will take us more into depth with analysis of 2015, as well as talking to you about the key pointers to the future. Chairman, you have the floor when you're ready.
Gracias, María.
Thank you, Maria, and good morning, everyone. Many thanks for being with us today at this presentation of the Mapfre results for 2015, in which we'll be giving you an idea about the key strategic ideas that will be informing our performance over the next 5 years, which is something that we're going to be publishing for shareholders in the next AGM on Friday, the 11th of March. As you already know, the main figures for Mapfre were as follows. In 2015, we got 26,702 million euros in consolidated revenues. That was a big increase, over 4%. And premiums written were over 22,300 million euros, with a growth of 2.3%. Attributable profit went slightly down. It's pretty well flat, really, to what we were giving as guidance from the end of the third quarter. So it's gone down 16% and is now 709 million euros. And the combined ratio has also remained pretty similar to what we've been publishing as guidance over the last few quarters at 98.6. That's up 2.8 percentage points on last year, and it's also above our target, which we published. What would we consider to be the main highlights of 2015? Well, first of all, without a doubt, our growth. Very robust growth, very sound growth, stable growth in complicated markets, but constant growth with double-digit growth in most of our business lines and in most countries. Some countries we grew over 10%. And in the three main additional business lines, reassurance, global and assistance, have also reported very strong growth. Throughout the year, we've been telling you that the result was being affected, obviously, by the weather phenomena we were seeing. That has an impact above all in the United States. In fact, it meant that we weren't able to mitigate it. Over 140 million dollars was the net hit it had on our accounts, and it meant that it affected our combined ratio by 1.3 points. Otherwise, it would have been 97.3, above what we were expecting. And this is important to talk about. It's that Spain is returning to growth. We're seeing that it's growing in some lines more than in others, but in the lines where Mapfre is the absolute leader, we are seeing very healthy growth indeed. Above all in motor insurance, which once again is growing nearly 1 point, and also in health insurance, where we've grown ahead of the market, outperforming our main competitors. As you can see, and this is something we'll be talking about today, we have been setting aside additional provisions to reinforce our balance sheet in different countries because of situations where we thought it was best to be conservative, so to be ahead of what might happen in the future in terms of claims and our loss ratio, and other markets where we're seeing a change in tendency in our loss ratio. So this, I think, was a brave decision and absolutely prudent. And we've explained why we are setting aside the provisions, which is mainly to flatten out volatility in future years. We want to highlight this because we think our performance has been magnificent, above all in reassurance, which has been developing in 2015 and had been showing sound growth for several years. But in 2015, it outperformed its own budget. Revenues going up very high, and it brings in more than 50% of business written and has improved its premiums written by 11%. So it's gone over the 150 million euros net earnings. And also our mutual funds and assets under management have grown. And with the sales of savings insurance in provisions, which is important because that has an impact on what we're doing in life, we see a big increase in mutual funds and managed portfolios, which have grown by 9%. So to sum up the overall situation of the year, I can just say that we've grown consistently in our main strategic markets. We already said last year which those were, and we reaffirm our interest in all of them. In Spain, we grew in non-life premiums by nearly 2%, also in health and in motor. Our second biggest market is Brazil. In local currency, we grew nearly 4% in premiums written. With the consolidation into euros, obviously, you can see the devaluation of the Brazilian real, which we'll talk about throughout the presentation. But nonetheless, we are getting robust growth in a very difficult backdrop for the company in Brazil. The third biggest market is the USA. There, too, we saw a nearly 9% growth in dollars in the local currency, and that's pretty important, or more than 30%, in fact, in euros because of the stronger dollar this year. And then two big markets for us are Mexico and Turkey, where we saw very high growth. In Mexico, ordinary recurrent growth was about 14%, but additionally, we also sold the biggest policy there, which was for Pemex, which really added a boost to our revenues in Mexico, where premiums grew 62%. And in Turkey, our company is constantly maintaining its technical underwriting growth and increasing premiums written by 41.3%. So Spain and abroad, well, we've gone down 30% in the contribution from Spain to the overall business and increased underwriting abroad. By business lines, business units, you can see our insurance business as a whole has grown perhaps the least, not even 1%. In reinsurance, however, so we're seeing 12% growth and net profit nearly 8% at 153 million euros. Global risks has also performed very well, growing 12% and net profit 32.8%. And then assistance has grown in revenues, but it's been hit in the last quarter by certain deviations in some lines of business and increases in provisions we had to set aside, which meant that it actually showed a net loss. I also wanted to remind you what our footprint looks like worldwide. With Germany and Brazil, we've got a big increase in our headcount, coming to 38,500 employees. And our portfolios, we're a company that is highly diversified, not just in our geographical footprint, but also in the kind of risks we're covering, recognizing the needs of both individuals and companies in life insurance and non-life insurance. So all in all, we are very well placed to go on seeking out new opportunities in these products. In some geographies where our profile isn't so high, we think there will be excellent opportunities to consolidate our growth over the next few years. So without further ado, I'll give you the floor now, Esteban Tejera, Vice Chairman of Mapfre.
Good morning to you all. Thank you very much for joining us here again this year, for another year. As you've already heard from the chairman, the key financials, you can see our consolidated revenue going up 4.1% and premiums up 2.3%. He's given you those figures. I don't want to say much more about it. Looking at our balance sheet, our equity was 10,408 million compared to the 11,469 million figure from 2014. 9.3% down, yes. Now that is essentially due to a number of factors. First of all, as you know, we deconsolidated CatalunyaCaixa. In other words, it is no longer part of our accounting perimeter, and that minority interest. But the biggest impact certainly is the effect minority interest, but the biggest impact certainly is the effect, the currency effect, the Brazilian currency, the real, and the Venezuelan bolivar currency. Together with the other Latin American currencies, of course, they have pulled the figures down because of exchange rates. That means that even though we have grown significantly in local currency and assets have also gone up, there has been this currency impact. There's also a slight variation, a downturn in the valuation of our financial investment, especially because of the turbulence at the start of Q3 in Europe because of the recurrence again of the Greek crisis. But as most of these assets are linked to the backed obligations, the increase in the provisions basically offsets this. Managed savings then. Total assets, first of all, 63,489 million there. And the managed savings figure in like-for-like terms is up 0.3% to 37,917 million euros. Our investment portfolio, the profile, the breakdown, is very similar to the one you're used to seeing over recent years, although there are slight changes. What is the slight change? You can see the main component of our portfolio, fixed income, this year compared to the previous year. And, of course, in line with the interest rate situation, we have, of course, increased slightly the weight of fixed income government investments, now representing 26,412 million compared to the figure from the previous year. Fixed income, corporate fixed income, is now slightly below the previous figure. It's 22.5% of our portfolio, 10,408 million. We have very little exposure to equities, although it has increased to 3.2% of our portfolio. It was 2% last year. Once again, that is because of the situation of interest rates. So we have an excellent cash position, as you can see here, 1 billion euros in cash and banks and property, real estate, 2,267 million euros. I'd like to highlight here that unlike the other financial assets that have all been booked, definitely mark to market at 31st of December. In this case, real estate property, part of the investment is booked at acquisition price. That means we have some unrealized capital gains, about 972 million euros, which would be additional if we had booked them at market price. Premiums, the geographical breakdown, I think the chairman's already talked you through the footprint distribution. I don't think I need to give you much more information, except the Mapfre, which was 14% in contribution last year, is 15.6% in contribution. That is also in North America, excellent contribution there. If you look at contribution attributable results, then there have been changes if you look at the regional listing here. On the one hand, there is something here which is totally new, and that is North America is now reporting these 32.7 million losses because of the impact of the snowstorms. You already heard about the snowstorms just earlier, and that means a 3.8% minus 3% contribution. And then if we look at Latin America, North and South, there has been this significant impact on our bottom line because of Venezuela, because of the exchange rates that we have been using, which are realistic. They are certainly prudent rates given the situation in that country, and that means that the euro exchange rate contribution is a lot lower. All of the other regions have performed well, especially I would highlight Mapfre Re. The chairman mentioned too, this represents almost 80% of our attributable profit. Perhaps the quarterly results are surprising. What I mean is that if you could have tracked the trend throughout the whole of last year, even though you would still see that impact of the snowstorms and how they gradually disappear during the year, also the exchange rate impacts, the currency impact, you would see that as you track the quarterly performance, the overall result would be more or less as expected, the same. What we've done, though, is to be forward-looking and as transparent as possible, trying to weigh up the value of the risks that we've seen in different markets, and we decided to use a prudential criterion by increasing our provisions. This certainly is fully aligned with the key lines that we'll be developing over the next 2 or 3 years. Essentially, we're trying to focus on profitable growth. And as that is the case, as I was saying, we have reviewed some of the businesses because of the circumstances in some of the countries where we're operating. They might be loss-making in the future or already starting to be loss-making. And one case is assistance, the situation in Venezuela, where the biggest contracts that we had in roadside assistance with some of the foreign insurance companies have now been cancelled because those insurance companies are leaving the country, and obviously we've reduced structural cost, and that has had a one-off impact. The cancellation of some of the collective policies were in America, United States, also in Brazil, and roadside assistance, and we've cancelled them because of the circumstances. Also in France, travel insurance. That means that for the next year, our baseline, our starting point, it would be business as usual, day-to-day business, to get on with that without having to worry about these one-off circumstances. We've been provisioning for Spain, just as we've done in the past, to get ready for that new scale of insurance payouts. We believe that the impact of that baremo, the scale of compensation payouts, is something that exists now, and we have to deal with it, and we're doing that and addressing it as stringently and as rigorous as we always do things. There have been some legislative changes in Turkey too. Now that means that civil liability for accidents, road accidents, would also undergo changes over the next year. We decided also to increase our provisions there. Something similar has happened in Colombia. Life insurance is the segment for specific long-term pension coverage. The minimum wage reappreciation is probably higher than would have been expected. In Mexico, we have especially focused on turning around some of those collective policies in health. In Spain, specifically, and overall, really, we have lower capital gains than in previous years. Realized capital gains 47.7%. Then overall, the impact is one that is prudential. It's 85 million. This is something that makes us address what is happening in all the markets and means we can be fully transparent with regard to future accounts. Let me go back to our P&L account. I'm going to go very quickly through this. The chairman has really run through all of these key highlights. 17,441 million euros is the figure recorded for non-life premiums. That's up 6.5%. And that increase has been recorded despite the exchange rate impact. Life premiums, 4,871 million euros is the recorded figure for the year. That's 10.6% down. It's lower than the figure that we've been recording over previous financial years. Nevertheless, it does reflect the lower sales of life and savings policies in a very low interest rate environment, and we have decided to be prudent about the products that we'll be offering. If you look at the next quarter, we are already seeing a growth in this type of products. We have launched new products, brought them onto the market already. We've taken advantage of the fact that the interest rate curve has tipped upwards slightly. And if you look at life and savings products, we are increasing in regular life savings premiums, and we're particularly seeing an increase in risk products. We're not seeing growth, though, in those single one-off premiums for the reasons I explained before. So this is the situation in Spain for you on the slide. 2.5% down in premiums. That is the life insurance impact. Once again, that is all due to the low interest rate environment here. The chairman has already talked to you about the fact there is growth right across all of our business lines in insurance in Spain. Finally, we're seeing the industry reporting growth figures, and in almost all of our business lines, we are recording good growth figures. There is a slightly lower growth figure in motor insurance, but it's still up 0.9%, and it's good compared to the industry. The reason for this is a full-year trend. If you look over the last few months, the growth that we are recording is positive. Life premiums, 1,824 million euros. And I need to go back to the explanation I gave you before about the fall here, that 12% downturn in premiums for life. The chairman talked you through that, but managed savings is pretty much flat. In total, 0.6% up. If you look at the 1.9% decrease there in life underwriting provisions, the 21,982 million, it's because we're seeing perhaps a diversion of our products to pension funds and mutual funds, up 5.8% and 9% respectively. These are the figures for Latin America, Brazil, in local currency terms. Our figures are up 3.6%, 4,814 million euros. LATAM South, the growth is 6.6%, up to 1,963 million euros, stripping out Venezuela, because to all intents and purposes, what we've done with Venezuela has been to drastically reduce the presence of Venezuela, both in our balance sheet and in our P&L account, until the situation changes, and because of particularly the inflation situation. Mexico, 72% up, Peru up 27%, Argentina 23% up, and Chile 13% up. These are the main markets that we have. North America, we're up in euro currency terms, 31.9%, although I would say here that the exchange rate is working in our favor here because of the weaker euro against the dollar, but it's 8.7% growth anyway in dollar terms in North America, and 4.4% in Puerto Rico. In other countries where we're also operating, Turkey, for instance, the figures are up 41% and 43% in Malta in euro terms, and Direct Line Italy and Germany have contributed 374 million euros, 260 million from the Italy business, direct client, and 114 from Germany. Now, those contributions are just from June. When we report on this year's financial year, then, of course, there will be full year figures. And that's all for me for now.
And give you an idea about what's going to be behind our forthcoming strategy plan for 2016 to 2018. What's going to be behind our forthcoming strategy plan for 2016 to 2018. But before starting, first of all, I wanted to wrap up this first part with a reflection. They're not the best earnings we could have obtained, but we're very satisfied. Throughout the year, all of our people worldwide have been working intensively, and this is the message that we put out to the board as well, and which they understood totally. Everybody worldwide has been working intensely throughout the world, knowing just how difficult it is to operate in some environments, recognizing that there were going to be changes in the economic cycle, there were going to be problems with exchange rates and weaker economic situations in countries that we've just heard about, such as Venezuela, and other small impacts because of a change of tendency in the loss ratio, and looking forward to possible regulatory changes that could have an impact on our accounts. But we're all excited about what we're doing, and the hard work has never ceased throughout the year, despite the fact that perhaps the earnings could have been substantially better. Nonetheless, with 709 million net attributable profit and with a growth of revenues of over 4%, we are satisfied because it's based on very sound foundations. Growth based within our own organization, a reduction of costs to have a more efficient structure overall, with recurrent loss ratios, with ordinary costs for claims being kept under control at very acceptable levels. So now let's think a little bit about what's going to come in the future over the next 3 years, rather than looking back over the past year. Where are we working worldwide? Let's look at the economic context, our global footprint, how we're impacted by the macroeconomy, where we are focusing in the next 3 years, which will be try to get profitable growth. Growth must be profitable. And finally, to confirm our main goals for growth next year. We all know the situation that we see with a lot of uncertainty, loss of trust amongst customers, and a lot of volatility in the markets worldwide and in Spain. However, until a few weeks back, the outlook was for greater stability and more trust in the recovery of the Spanish economy and the European economy. And we were basing our ideas on the very great strength of the North American economy, which is no longer the driver for world growth, but nonetheless is a big player and establishes the guidelines for the performance of Western economies. So if the US economy is going well, the rest of the developed economies will go well. And also in Latin America. Latin America is our biggest region, and it's definitely a very important part of our business. The fact that the economic development in the region shows figures that are slowing down doesn't mean to say that Mapfre is going to have bigger problems. Quite the opposite. We think that it would make sense because commodity prices, which are going down, and the fact that China is no longer doing so much in terms of international, which are going down, and the fact that China is no longer doing so much in terms of international trade. Nonetheless, growth rates and the possible risk we might see in emerging economies isn't something that worries us. Quite opposite. In the world as a whole, we're going to see similar growth rates as what we've been seeing over the last 30 years. The slowdown doesn't mean recession. And in all the countries, we're going to try to take advantage of all opportunities as they arise. Out of a time of great difficulties that had an impact on the insurance market, which contracted here in Spain. A time of great difficulties that had an impact on the insurance market, which contracted here in Spain. But in 2015, as we all see from the published data and from Mapfre's data too, we have had grounds for certain optimism with GDP growing in 2015. It should grow about the same in 2016. There's no inflation risk anymore, really, and that's an additional factor in our estimates. And the slow, still insufficient decrease in unemployment encourages us to think that we're at a time when opportunities are arising in this country. Available income has improved for households. The deleveraging of both companies and people and families is important, and lower oil prices has a direct impact on consumers' pockets, which we reckon at 17 billion euros, which is an important injection, not just of money, but also of optimism and trust in the future for the Spanish economy. We have to set that against what we're seeing in the performance of markets. And we've got this optimism in Spain, but there is, of course, a lack of trust amongst the big investors, the big funds and institutional investors in the equities market, which is leading to the distortions that we're hearing about over the last few days. Mapfre is a global company, and we have to think about the world. Spain is important, but it's 28% of our business, so Spain is out there to take advantage of our global footprint in the market where we operate. The recovery of Spain. Brazil is there to take advantage of our global footprint in the market where we operate. The recovery of Spain. Brazil is been an important market with excellent performance in 2015. We expect that in 2016, 2017 and 2018, whatever happens in the macroeconomy there, although we do hope that it will recover after 2017. Latin America always adds to our bottom line, and that's why we're there doing business there. And North America, the United States, will, because of the weather. Actually, it's snowing right now in Boston, but in no way is it snowing as hard as it did last because of the weather. Actually, it's snowing right now in Boston, but in no way is it snowing as hard as it did last year. Just to talk about the main markets, I just wanted to confirm our trust that here in Spain we will continue to be leaders in non-life. It's true that we're no longer number one in premiums written for the market as a whole, but nonetheless we're still the biggest in non-life. We're still absolute leaders in the motor. We have a 20.5 share, whilst our competitors nearest competitors only at 18%. So in all the lines of business we have 20.5 share, whilst our competitors nearest competitors only at 18%. So in all the lines of business we have to overcome the problems of working in an environment of low interest rates, but we are ready for that challenge and we will deliver. We're working on the way we see our service and how we can support management, and that goes beyond figures. We've got a new concept worldwide which to improve the quality perceived by our consumers. We're also working in non-life and in life, and we're developing Verti as to improve the quality perceived by our consumers. We're also working in non-life and in life, and we're developing Verti as a vital way of moving into digital business, not just in Spain, where we've already got over 300,000 customers, but worldwide. In Brazil, as I said, it's been an excellent year, with the outlook looking good for the next few years, increasing our profit by nearly 16%, an increase in premiums written, an increase in the number of customers, and above all, we've got company that's building itself up, taking advantage of the advantages it can get from the Brazilian market. Our return on equity is nearly 17%. That's excellent. And in 26, to optimize costs and get more upside in our margins. And we're also seeing growth in all the businesses in Brazil and get more upside in our margins. And we're also seeing growth in all the businesses in Brazil, which will continue to give grounds for our trust in this unit, which is the second business contributor to our bottom line in Mapfre. LATAM North and South. It's what I said before. Mexico, constant increase, growing in recurrent business by 14% with the PEME. I was there myself and saw it recently with leadership positions in all the countries which have shown exceptional development. I was there myself and saw it recently with leadership positions in all the countries which have shown exceptional development. The Dominican Republic, Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, all of these markets are showing excellent performance, and our positioning there makes us the only leader that's working in all the countries at the same time. And in Latam South, we're seeing good business being done in nearly all the countries, and multi-channel offering and spearheading growth, although new competitors are moving into the market. Talking about the rest of the world, we have and spearheading growth, although new competitors are moving into the market. Talking about the rest of the world, we have a big footprint in the United States, and there we are recognizing how important it is to consolidate our businesses, and we will do so, which will bring in further benefits for the group, quite apart from the weather phenomena, which were exceptional in 2015, even on the assumption that that could happen again in future years. Our catastrophe reinsurance that we have means that we can avoid being hit so badly should those kinds of losses occur again. So we're doing well in the United States, where we've also restructured what we're doing. We're talking about a country which is a continent with 5 regional offices, which will help our growth to be moderated with better underwriting control and providing decentralized support, which we think is very important. We've always done that in big countries so that we can get organic growth of our business with 5 regional offices and 1 on the island of Puerto Rico. And then in EMEA, mainly in Europe really, consolidation with Direct Line has opened up a platform from which we can grow in digital business worldwide. This is a business and up a platform from which we can grow in digital business worldwide. This is a business that came up, we took advantage of an advantage, and once we've got full integration, we think we'll be excellently placed to take advantage of these 2 wonderful springboards for the future in Germany and Italy. And in APA's been operating there for 11 years. There's been started to operate in China, and the insurance business hasn't yet got a license, but we're already working to get everything in place so that when we're operating there for 11 years, there's been started to operate in China, and the insurance business hasn't yet got a license, but we're already working to get everything in place so that when we get the license, we can start operations. Then a new project that I'm going to be announcing shortly is also starting operations in China. To give you a summary, the change we have in our new strategy plan reflects that we are going to meet our goals as we did in 2013 to 2015. We always focus on our shareholders, and we think the ratios there have been good. We've tried to create total shareholder return, and just 3 years, earnings per share have gone from 0.215 to 0.23, and the share have gone from 0.215 to 0.23, and the average listing of the share has gone from 2.3 euros to 2.8, and our net profit on average over the last 3 years was 782 million euros. It could have been slightly better, but we explained why that was, and it's grown 17% against what we got in 2012. Moreover, we confirm our payout always above 50%, as we promised. The average return in like-for-like periods, 1 3-year period against another, was over 12%. Just in dividends in 2013, 14 and 15, we've had dividends of about 5%, 4.9 in 2.8 in 14 and 2.9 in 15, compared to the... I'm sorry, that was 4, not 2. 4.9 in 2015. and that gives us 7.5% all in all. And the dividend approved yesterday in the board ratifies our policy of trusting in the organization and in our business model and in our revenues, and above all, the fact that we think we're going to get sustainable growth. 0.13 euros per share is important. That will be charged to the earnings for the year and will be paid out in cash. One of the most attractive dividends in the Spanish market are going to be related to getting highly growth. Above all, will be work to be related to getting highly growth. Above all, we'll be working on the underlying elements underpinning the strategy plan, which are 4 basic pillars. First of all, we want to get more customer focused. We want to get digital transformation. The big step forward that we're going to see with this new Mapfre that we're building up and which we are already seeing is working well, will also be based on our own people, our talent, our culture, the way we understand our organization and our internal structure, because it's a very specific kind of structure which can make our talent, our culture, the way we understand our organization and our internal structure, because it's a very specific kind of structure which can make us stronger and sounder with a better outlook for the future than other similar organizations. In our customer focus, we talk about the segmentation of customers. This is a project that we're already rolling out in several countries, and this year we're starting to pilot it in Peru and Portugal in order to experience project which I talked about. We want our customer to tell us how they perceive our quality. We want our customer to tell us how they perceive our quality, the Net Promoter Score. And in all the countries where we don't have where we've established MPS, we are preferred in all the lines of business, including in Spain and elsewhere, in home insurance and in motor insurance. So we're optimally placed for the future. In our digital transformation, we've got impressive plans with more than 200 projects underway, some larger than others, really changing the way that Mapfre looks, trying to be more productive, trying to be more customer focused, and transforming the organizational structure so that we'll be leaner and more focused on our main objectives. Verti is definitely an important part of our digital transformation, but not the only pillar of it. There we try to get direct contact with our customer over internet, and that's important. It's a leading internet company here in Spain and wants to pass on the model elsewhere. With direct line in Italy and Germany, we can try out. We have the US model with the Q project, which is being developed in the Muralla project, the Chinese wall, the US model with the Q project, which is being developed in the Muralla project, the Chinese wall project for China. So we're a brand that is developing the sale of insurance over internet, and we'll continue with our digital distribution of our products in a slightly different way, getting gradual growth in one single channel, which is internet, in a slightly different way, getting gradual growth in one single channel, which is internet. And also, we've launched a new project some years back with the pricing engine that we have here, and with the fantastic experience we've had with them here, with the pricing engine that we have here, and with the fantastic experience we've had with them here in Spain, we decided we wanted to launch a worldwide project with them, a 50-50 joint venture to try to have price ready to be rolled out there, and we're sure it's going to be a great success very soon. The other 3 countries will be covered by that project as out there, and we're sure it's going to be a great success very soon. The other 3 countries will be covered by that project as well. The other thing that we think is important is to increase the management we have of our underwriting, avoiding the kind of problems we've seen this year, focusing more on controlling aspects that perhaps got diluted in the transformation process, control of the pricing and of the way that we give our services, we can immediately respond to what is required of us in order to help all insured parties as directly as possible, and then developing talent. Respond to what is required of us in order to help all insured parties as directly as possible, and then developing talent. People have always been important to Mapfre and will continue to be so. We have enormous projects for mobility, for training, for scholarships, and for talent management. Not just for people who work in Mapfre, but also we are supporting a lot of training institutions outside Mapfre in order to train their students so that they can then end up working our company. And finally, and here I'm going to wrap up, I wanted to confirm our main indicators that we have underlying our corporate performance. 3 years back, we said we wanted a combined ratio of about 96%. Well, the combined ratio isn't the end of the road. No, it's an ongoing way of measuring our performance, showing that we're controlling our costs, providing the right services. So if we look at things at the end of 2016, we're pretty sure we'll reach our objective. And what's happened this year won't drag us down. But taking out the impact of 1.3 points in the combined ratio from the United States and taking the average of the last 3 years, we're at 97.3. And we're going to work hard to ensure that the combined ratio remains where it should do, not just in 2016, but also at the average of the 3 years. We're very close to that, between 28 and 29%. It's true that this year there have been some adjustments. 3 years, we're very close to that, between 28 and 29%. It's true that this year there have been some adjustments to this, but definitely nothing that worries us because the plans are underway, so we're sure that we will deliver on that. And in the payout, it's pretty clear as well. And the big question that I'm sure a lot of you are asking yourselves has to do with revenues. We can confirm the revenues of 30 billion to the end of the year is not possible. But if we go back to when we decided that 30 figures, and the situation of Venezuela, where we've gone from being worth 1 billion to being worth 60 million, it couldn't have been of Venezuela, where we've gone from being worth 1 billion to being worth 60 million, it couldn't have been foreseen. And so with the creation of revenues, if they'd been valued at previous exchange rates, we would have been very close to target. And with the budget we have for 2016, we'd definitely be on that 30 billion target. We therefore consider that the target is one we will be able to deliver on because we can explain where the deviations have come from for the moment. There are elements that are outside our control, after all. So that's about it. Many thanks. And now we're...
Thank you very much, Chairman and Vice Chairman. Let's begin our Q&A session. And just as we did last year, what we're going to do... let's begin our Q&A session. And just as we did last year, what we're going to do is start off with the questions that have come into us from media channels outside of Spain. Let me just explain. We received these questions that I'm going to read out to you now were received before the results were published directly. And let's start off with Brazil. A number of different media have asked us about the company's plans for Brazil for 2016 and future. A number of different media have asked us about the company's plans for Brazil for 2016 and future years.
The main plans in Brazil are to consolidate our leadership, taking advantage of the potential of our joint venture with Banco do Brasil, and taking advantage of all market opportunities that are occurring in health. For example, we're thinking of getting new organic growth in the country, either through joint ventures or working under our structure, and maintaining and increasing the kind of returns on our assets. So, maintaining and increasing the kind of returns on our assets. So, global ideas, our global projects for digital transformation and multi-channel selling are also applicable to Brazil, and that we're highly focused on growing in Brazil in Mapfre next year.
Alberto Medieta from one of the Peru channels, Peru 21, has said, what changes would you expect in the sector to be able to penetrate the market, to bring out new products and other ideas? Quite often we've heard that the Peruvian legislation doesn't...
Well, in 2015, with exceptional growth in business and in earnings. And it's also true that we have competitors there. There are not that many with exceptional growth in business and in earnings. And it's also true that we have competitors there. There are not that many multi-line companies, only 5, but there's intense competition. It's so intense, in fact, that in general lines of business for the last 20 years there have been losses with over 100% combined ratio. But our performance is better, and definitely in life our performance is been very sound. We think we have to go and develop private insurance for small companies. And if the government wants to support the insurance industry, they have to, which are very good, to provide certainty for the middle classes there. They have to help us to have the kind of health insurance that they should be able to accept, and also our retirement provisions are very important and plans are very important, because there they have to recognize they will have an aging population which will require a sort of government and support as well.
Marco Alba from Diario Gestan and Jonathan Baltasar from Semana Económica, both in Peru, are asking about the investment plans Mapfre has for Peru this year and future years in the medium term.
Well, investment there. We want organic development of consolidating our model in Brazil, as I said, in Brazil, investing in the digital platform and in mobility, segmentation of customers, using our own sales channels. There aren't that many sales agencies there, which is a handicap for the market, but a great opportunity for Mapfre. We've grown over 26% and we've gained 1.2 points in market share. So there's definitely upside to continue growing in Peru without any additional big acquisitions. Anyway, there's no one to take over.
This is not Peru, Semana Económica. Jonathan Baltasar is asking us for our
Mapfre in 2015, and we should congratulate all the employees there for the fantastic performance of the country last year. Congratulate all the employees there for the fantastic performance of the country last year.
From Peru too, Marco Alvaro from Diario Gestión is asking what our expectations are for the insurance market in the country in a greater uncertainty environment for the world.
Lower growth is, instead of growing 6, growing 3.5. It's still growth, but the enormous effort made with the public and private sectors trying to consolidate the growth of the middle classes in Peru as an emerging class is really important, which means it opens up new opportunities for jobs, for socio-economic development, for development of consumer products and services. Obviously, there are elections coming, and in electoral periods, countries, obviously, as we're seeing in Spain, do tend to suffer, and trust suffers. But we're sure that the trust will be maintained, and if that's so, then it's going to be a fantastic place to invest and great for our industry. In El Sole from Italy, we have a question. What, stemming from the diversification of investments under Solvency II, are you thinking of making new investments in Italy? Well, investments under Solvency II, are you thinking of making new investments in Italy?
Well, in Italy, in fact, what we have us this year is consolidation of the operation that we acquired last year. We have integrated in an exemplary fashion, I believe, in both Italy and Germany, the companies. We've really rolled out all our resources there. In a very short space of time, we have been able to outperform all of those operating standards that we had set for ourselves here, and the challenges that we set out for ourselves at the start, and the ultimate goal when we acquired the companies is all about being able to transfer the best practices from there over here and from here over there with regard to the new distribution channels. And that is what we're working on, and that will be our key mission this year. Thinking about Solvency II from that standpoint, there is really no impact. on our investment at all. If you look at our financial investments, though, in Italy, in the rest of Europe, and you can see the breakdown of our financial investments in the presentation, we have widely distributed our financial investment all through the euro.
And finally, in this block, before we move on to the press conference as such, we're asked from the Philippines, what's the importance of... And finally, in this block, before we move on to the press conference as such, we're asked from the Philippines, what's the importance of the Philippine market for Mapfre?
Well, from here, Philippines looks very small, doesn't it? Philippines, the country itself. But we've been there in the country since 1995 as a company, Mapfre, and we are an important player there in non-life insurance. We have more than 300 people. Some changes in the management team, because it's true to say that you always have to make changes when you've been a management team. Because it's true to say that you always have to make changes when you've been running a company for a long time, simply because of age regions. The age of people in the company mean that you do have to rotate people. And yes, it's big, even though we're small.
Well, we can now open the floor to questions here. Miguel Ángel Valero. Good morning. I've got 4 questions. One is the obligatory one, because of the debate about the supervision of insurance. What is the position of the chairman? Will we continue reporting up to the government through the Ministry of the Economy, or will we have a different model working through the Bank of Spain as our supervisor? There's a proposal from UNESPA to set up an independent committee funded by the industry itself. And you haven't referred to the fact that Mapfre has lost its leading position in Spain. Are you going to try and recover that top position, or do you think it's normal, looking at what's happened, that now a banking entity should take over the leadership in the insurance industry? Berti is now going to be your digital brand worldwide. Can you talk about Spain and the new production and losses as well? Are you rolling out your business plan? And then Preminem. What's the real investment that Mapfre has made there? And is that agreement with Admiral going to extend to other lines?
Let me answer the first 2 questions, and then Mr. Tejera will answer the next 2. So the supervisor, well, of course, we can't necessarily be happy with the way supervision works at the moment, because of the resources that are there and the fact that this is attached to the Ministry of the Economy. UNESPA's proposal by the chairperson of UNESPA, we don't just support that proposal, but we're absolutely convinced that is the best way to move forward to make sure that we have available resources and that we need a proposal that's been circulated, the new European directive. There are 3 supervisory pillars that are set on the directive, with an insurance supervisor that should be completely circulated. The new European directive. There are 3 supervisory pillars that are set on the directive, with an insurance supervisor that should be completely independent. So we fully support the position taken by UNESPA with regard to that question. The other reference that you made, I think you said that I didn't mention this, but I did mention this, but I have absolutely no problem with mentioning it again. Yes, we have to acknowledge that we have lost that leading position in the Spanish market. For more possibility of retaining their clients, they come into the bank and they can actually move into their own insurance company. It's quite easy to have that possibility of retaining their clients. They come into the bank and they can actually move into their own insurance company. It's quite easy to have that movement. It's not always quite clear exactly what side you're sitting on, what you're selling. We're quite clear what we do. We sell insurance products, medium, long-term life savers that have taken advantage of that situation this year. Mapfre will continue to roll out its own project, develop our products, and make sure that we commit to management of savings. That situation this year. Mapfre will continue to roll out its own project, develop our products, and make sure that we commit to management of savings and seek out any products, insurance products, asset-related ones that can help us to grow in size there. But today, Mapfre is a Spanish insurance company, the biggest insurance company in the world, and I think we're the only Spanish-speaking company that is all over the world, and we're the leaders in multi-peril insurance, in non-life in Spain, and we are the company that sets standards both in Spain and Latin America. And what about the Verti then? Yes, as I said in my presentation, Verti is part of our strategic plan. Verti will be our digital brand abroad, outside of Spain, for the whole of the company, Mapfre. What about Verti in Spain then? Verti is a project which is being rolled out. It's recording growth figures. We have more than 350,000 policies, I believe. That was the figure from the end of 2015, and it's a project that still has not gained sufficient critical mass to be able to break even. This type of channel, it's slightly different to other channels, and it's because of the advertising and IT development costs that you need to account for, and then advertising and IT development costs that you need to account for, and then of course as things move forward, your overall costs become lower than traditional channels, but you need to change that cost into a variable, and to do that, you need to build up that critical mass that we haven't yet done. That is why Verti's accounts are. Yes, Preminen was the other question. Now, Preminen is a joint venture with Admiral. It's a joint venture, was the other question. Now, Preminen is a joint venture with Admiral. It's a joint venture to develop comparison search engines, and the idea is 50% split. It depends on the countries that we're going to move into and the speed of our rollout, but we will have to make the investment as appropriate. In no case we're talking about major investments. There is an agreement, though, in those locations where Admiral already has its comparison engine. CNBC newspaper. I have a number of questions for you. One, that provision is that you've made in Spain. Is that going to be enough to be able to actually? I have a number of questions for you. One, that provision is that you've made in Spain. Is that going to be enough to be able to actually soften the impact there for premiums with Bankia? Can you tell me about that? And then also, have you decided whether to claim against Bankia because of with Bankia? Can you tell me about that? And then also, have you decided whether to claim against Bankia because of their IPO, or do you think that the new Supreme Court ruling is actually closing the door on that possibility?
Thank you. Indeed, we have talked about boosting the technical provisions for motor insurance and public liability in Spain, in part because our own analysis regarding the establishment of this rate card for the courts does have an impact. A fantastic tool, and it has to be updated, so we have to congratulate all the stakeholders, above all regulator in the insurance business, who fantastic tool, and it has to be updated, so we have to congratulate all the stakeholders, above all regulator in the insurance business, who has been very much on top of what was going on, getting unanimous support from all stakeholders, the insurance companies, the government, the associations of victims and such like, as well as the state attorney for traffic victims, which perhaps weren't properly covered in the previous rate sheet that the judges used for indemnity payments, but which perhaps weren't properly covered in the previous rate sheet that the judges used for indemnity payments, but we think that now the increases will reflect reality, they will occur, and we're aware that that will mean that we will have to put up our rates, the market will have to put up rates, and at the moment the industry isn't putting up the prices enough to cover the kind of loss ratios that we'll see over the next few years. Groups of customers and different customers. Some of the prices will go up, some will go down, depending on these profiles. But we want to be able to deal with these needs. Different customers. Some of the prices will go up, some will go down, depending on these profiles. But we want to be able to deal with these needs, not just because of the change in the way that the judges establish the rates, but also the economic situation here. We're seeing more and more cars on the roads. There's more going on, more business, and they're also unfortunately doing. And I think now I'm going to talk about the possible claim against Mapfre. Now I'm going to talk about the possible claim against against Bankia or Frob or whatever for their IPO, which led to losses for many private and institutional investors, having losses, including Mapfre as the biggest institutional investor here. This year, last year at the same time, we answered the question and said that Mapfre and its board of directors would be analyzing this of the company. Obviously, at that time, after we made that statement, we decided in the board of directors that, obviously, at that time, after we made that statement, we decided in the board of directors that it wasn't feasible to lodge such a suit. Now, public opinion has changed as new things come to light with the two rulings from the Supreme Court wrecking the rights of two private ex-shareholders. We claim that money from Bankia. So there is some other arguments in that ruling which we may be able to use as some other arguments in that ruling which we may be able to use as institutional investors. So the Supreme Court, however, didn't say that we didn't have the right to lodge such a suit. So now we have to look at the legal realities of the situation in order to decide what.
And as regards the contribution made by Bankia to Mapfre's business, this year has been quite a special year, as I did mention. As regards the contribution made by Bankia to Mapfre's business, this year has been quite a special year, as I did mention earlier on. With regard to life insurance sold through banking branches in particular, and especially because of the interest rate environment, which is a low interest rate environment. But if you go to look at what's behind the figures, I think you can see a major policy, the process in Bankia. There is a policy, the process in Bankia. There is a lack of issuance there, not just in the case of Bankia, but other partners as well. We're seeing the same case, but Mapfre is growing 26% in our premiums on these policies overall, but the banking challenge is recording figures that are threefold that, so 3 times as much as was being recorded before, and that is something that we've seen specifically in Q4. It's quite similar case in risk or peril insurance, and here the figures are quite important figures here because it's 108 million euros as a contribution that is important figures here because it's 108 million euros as a contribution that is being made. Very profitable products. Let's continue there. Marina, in your row. Can you tell us who you are?
Hola, buenas.
Pablo López from Onda Madrid, working with Actualidad Aseguradora as well. In this project you have for digital transformation, are you working on or will you start to work on specific projects related to big data and digital footprint for the parties that are currently insured and that will be looking at what could be done over devices installed in vehicles, working at the social networks? We see that
Barbara, that's such an exciting question, and we could spend a lot of time answering that. When we talk about digital transformation in our organization, we always say, and I always repeat this, that in question, and we could spend a lot of time answering that. When we talk about digital transformation in our organization, we always say, and I always repeat this, that Mapfre has been transforming itself digitally for a long time now. It was the very first company that worked with teleprocessing, remote processing, and that wasn't such a long time ago. We have 2,000. Used to have 2,000 branches that was actually printing out these policies. We don't do that anymore. And then that was called CRM. Well, all of those processes meant that we were able to actually bring out that way insurance is done, the way the business is run. I know there's a lot of that can still be. Well, all of those processes meant that we were able to actually bring out that way insurance is done, the way the business is run. I know there's a lot of that can still be done. And I'm definitely not saying that is done the way the business is run. I know there's a lot of that can still be done. And I'm definitely not saying that we have completed the whole processes, but it is a direction that we're in. It was, in the past, it used to be about going from paper to IT and actually work with the client, and not just the company controlling one side, but allowing the client also to take control of work with the client, and not just the company controlling one side, but allowing the client also to take control of. We want to be able to offer clients the possibility of making the most of that and getting the products that can really be the right ones for them, and not just workability of making the most of that and getting the products that can really be the right ones for them, and not just work out products that are good for everybody. We want to personalize them and customize that. The digital fingerprint there is something that is a new project, or the footprint. That there are so many mobility projects that are ongoing with that you can actually do individually and independently. I'm not just thinking about our client that you can actually do individually and independently. I'm not just thinking about our clients here, but it's all about tremendous data work that is done in the insurance business. It's the brokers there. They are the ones that are the ones that are building up this information, have to really keep tabs on it. There's such a lot of digital information there. The information that is given, the physical present as well. We have to really take advantage of the fact that we can actually use information closer information that is given, the physical present as well. We have to really take advantage of the fact that we can actually use information closer to the client can use the information, and of course there is a price reduction impact there without really making things more complicated. We want to streamline things, be more efficient, to be leaner, bring down insurance. I have 3 questions for you. One is about your forecast for revenue this year, and then for you. One is about your forecast for revenue this year, and then in your press release you mentioned 2 industrial claims that have had impact in Spain. I think there's one also in Latin America. They're quite important, and I want to know if it was that claim was what was its impact, and I want to know whether the case of Spain was that claim was what was its impact, and I want to know whether the case of Spain was that Campo Free, and I'd like to know the impact on your.
In Brazil, yes, it was the breaking of the dam, and we announced, and it wasn't especially relevant. And then in Spain, the impact, however, relevant. And then in Spain, the impact, however, Consevera Almo. The impact, however, Conservera Almo. Okay. It's a canning factory. And in the combined ratio that we have, that has an impact, some impact, but it doesn't imply anything new compared to what we've already reported normally when there are exceptions. And then the other question you asked, Robert, about expected revenues for 2016. It's true I didn't mention this, although I said we wouldn't reach that 30 billion given the current. You asked, Robert, about expected revenues for 2016. It's true I didn't mention this, although I said we wouldn't reach that 30 billion given the current situation in the currency markets. Over the last 2 years, the Brazilian real has made us lose 1.5 billion euros in premiums, and we have to add that to the current revenues because the business has grown according to the forecast in reales, but when you convert that into euros, along the way we lose 1.5 billion euros. Adding the 1 billion from Venezuela, that explains for over 2 billion, 2.5 billion, which have to be added to the 26 billion. And so that is more in line with the announcement we made in March 2013. So we'll be doing them with Íñigo. Hello, Íñigo Barón from El País. With Íñigo. Hello. Íñigo Barón from El País. I want to ask about the government at the moment. Do you see paralysis in the economy? How do you see the problem of climate change and climate worldwide, if you'll allow me? How do you see the problem of climate change and climate worldwide, if you'll allow me? Are you involved in campaigns? I know that you sit on, if you'll allow me. Are you involved in campaigns? I know that you sit on certain forums that are dealing with this problem. Can you talk about that? And then finally, insurance as such. I think you said you're in favor of that it wasn't independent. I mean, it's something that doesn't seem to have come up. Why not? And you said it wasn't independent. I mean, it's something that doesn't seem to have come up. Why not? And you said it doesn't make sense to try to be in favor of this, having a more specialist watchdog for insurance. Favor of this, having a more specialist watchdog for insurance. When you were talking about what's been published, was it the opposition of the governor here in Spain?
Well, Íñigo, let me see if I can go through your questions. That first question, well, my view, following what I've read and heard, of course, none of us are happy with a situation of uncertainty, are we? And we hope that in our lives and in our view, following what I've read and heard, of course, none of us are happy with a situation of uncertainty, are we? And we hope that in our lives and in our companies, that country right now, we don't know what's going to happen the day after tomorrow. Unfortunately, I think it is for agreements to be reached as soon as possible. Happen the day after tomorrow. Unfortunately, I think it is for agreements to be reached as soon as possible, because a repetition of the general election, I don't think would be a happy situation either for uncertainty reached as soon as possible, because a repetition of the general election, I don't think would be a happy situation either for. Yes, uncertainty does produce a lack of confidence and trust. I can't tell you anything, Chairman of the company or from the corporate, does produce a lack of confidence and trust. I can't tell you anything, Chairman of the company or from the corporate. These transitional processes don't really help to generate trust and confidence, to generate investment, they really don't help at all. And with processes don't really help to generate trust and confidence, to generate investment. They really don't help at all with the economic recovery, which was really picking up speed here in Spain. there's such a lot that still has to be done to create jobs, to reintegrate into society and ordinary life people that weeks we might get greater stability, no matter who will pensions, independence, lack of independence. I didn't, no matter who will pensions, independence, lack of independence. I didn't. It doesn't mean to say that it wasn't neutral or acting in independence, lack of independence. I didn't. It doesn't mean to say that it wasn't neutral or acting neutrally, a lack of independence. What that means is that the supervisor and regulators should be different so that they can fully maintain a position of neutrality. And Mapfre's position is to back up the proposal with regard to the banking supervision proposal that has come out from the IOPA, and what it means is that you should have regulation on one side and supervision on the other side, more resources, and what we need is to put together another parallel or supplementary, and what we need is to put together another parallel or supplementary body that would be independent. I don't agree at all with what the Bank of Spain was asking for. No, we don't think that would be the right thing for the insurance industry here in Spain, to integrate with the banking supervision entity the insurance side. Yes, I think there was another question there that hasn't yet been answered about climate change. Yes. If you're talking about an increase in claims last year, 32 days of constant snowfall in Massachusetts, it was minus 20 temperatures. You would imagine that, of course, that is related to climate change. That is certainly a line of thought, and of course, Mapfre tries to make its contribution. Mapfre has signed up for the 2021 goals, of course, with the UN. In fact, the UN Secretary General was here recently, and when he came, we, together with other Spanish companies that are very much committed to combating climate change, met him. Mapfre is also committed to doing as much research as possible to see how we can bring in climate change into insurance. So there is a worldwide think tank in Geneva for an insurance company, and the meeting in Rome that will be held this year, the General Assembly. Well, there's a working group already, a task force looking at developing some ideas for the Assembly on what the insurance industry can do to help combat climate change. The top insurance company, especially Mapfre, well, we have committed to reducing our own CO2 emissions. So this is something we report, of course, annually. But essentially, with the think tank that is operating from Geneva, we're opening up a new track, I believe, for insurance company to be able to work towards becoming more green, quote unquote, as companies, so that there should be insurance solutions that can help industries as well to become greener. And that is the idea that would hopefully help us to deliver on those goals to reduce global warming. More questions? Yes. I believe we have someone. Could you give your name, please? Paloma González. Yes, I'm from Insurance Channel. I want to know what Mapfre is planning to do in Venezuela, given the situation in the country and the impact on the P&L account in Mapfre. Are you thinking about making any acquisitions? Are you thinking about buying up any other operation in any other country? Because it seems that there are some fast-moving, emerging countries out there could be good in the future.
Thank you, Paloma. Well, in Venezuela, there are two things: developing insurance business, but then there's also the way it's recorded to the books. And with respect to the way it's recorded to the books, I've said that we have been recognizing the impact of the exchange rate in order to make sure that the company recognizes the impairment and acts accordingly. So there's nothing new that I can say about that. We're minimizing uncertainty about what could be done in Venezuela over the next few years. As to our business there and our profile in the country, we're very proud to have worked in Venezuela for many years and to continue. It's not acceptable. We have to work to improve the social and economic conditions of people, and the circumstances right now aren't good. We are working in business. We have to work to improve the social and economic conditions of people, and the circumstances right now aren't good. We are working in business as usual. We're complying with all the requirements and demands of the government, and we're leaders with over 1,000 employees there and with several agents as well, working not in a way that's absolutely normal because the country is not in a normal situation, but at least trying to do, Mapfre say, we're open to new opportunities, but we're not actively searching out such opportunities. We've made acquisitions just over a year ago. The Germany opportunities, but we're not actively searching out such opportunities. We've made acquisitions just over a year ago. The Germany company and the Italian company, for example, show that we have developed an important process for integration to onboard the companies and also taking up the possibility of vertical distribution through a company like Verti. So we have to onboard these companies, we have to simplify the way we operate, we have to streamline our structure, and that means that our people are working hard on internal improvements and study them under the usual discipline that we apply to such cases. Yes, Paulo Ferrer from Hispanidad.com. I'd like to know discipline that we apply to such cases. Yes, Paulo Ferrer from Hispanidad.com. I'd like to know why you think that Verti isn't giving profits yet. Is it so turn around and produce a profit? And then China. When do you think that you'll get the operating license? And then China. When do you think that you'll get the operating license? And then coming back to Venezuela. Do you think the restructuring there has finished, or are you going to do further restructuring? Are you going to cut back headcount, or would you possibly think of getting out of the country? And then finally, are the changes on the board finished? Have you changed are you going to have any future changes?
Yes. Let's share out these questions. Yes, Venezuela, first of all. Yes, it is important to clarify this, I think. In Venezuela, from the operating standpoint, the company is still growing, it's still operating. The problem is that when we transfer that growth to the accounts here, then we are applying an exchange rate that of course, fully incorporates the inflationary situation in the country. And as you convert into euros, you're converting into much less. But from an operating business point of view, the situation is perfectly normal. The only place that we have seen an impact that has made us limit our structure is in the road assistance business, where what we were doing, or what we do normally, has decided not to provide that coverage, so they're no longer taking our policies. But that's an absolute minimum impact coming through from Venezuela there. Decided not to provide that coverage, so they're no longer taking our policies. But that's an absolute minimum impact coming through from Venezuela there. When the exchange rate has gone from 12, that was the figure last year, and now it's 400 is the current exchange rate. In euro terms, that has a drastic impact on the accounts, but fully aware of the fact that this is a much more transparent way of doing things. It's much better to be to showing the real exchange rate, not the much more transparent way of doing things. It's much better to be to showing the real exchange rate, not the official one that might be official. Let's make things absolutely clear. We are not going to downsize. We're not going to make changes to our structure there in Venezuela because essentially the company is still growing, outperforming the market and making contribution to the industry in Venezuela with all of the constraints that everybody's fully aware of with regard to operating in Venezuela. As Pablo Verti, that project on paper, our forecasts were linked to recovery in premiums and economic recovery. Our forecasts were linked to recovery in premiums and economic recovery and a better environment than we've seen before. Of course, now we're seeing all of this happening. There has been some big changes in those circumstances. Of course, a big impairment of the motor insurance business here in Spain. The combined ratio is over 100 now, so on average, the industry is actually losing money in motor insurance here in Spain. And I think unless measures are taken, there will be a big problem in the industry. The Verti is actually worth different assumptions that we've had in the past. And what Mapfre getting to break even? Well, that'll take us a lot longer than we expected, and I understand that. But I believe that in 2 or 3 years' time, we will hit that break-even point to break even. Well, that'll take us a lot longer than we expected, and I understand that. But I believe that in 2 or 3 years' time, we will hit that break-even point. Okay, the situation has changed from what it was like before. The scenario that we're assuming is different now, and even with that assumption that there would be additional losses that we had originally expected in Verti. Verti is so important, so valuable for us, and it's intangible value because we've become one of the leading companies. And we're talking about US, China, and Italy as well. Now, we're able to do this because we have been able to develop the know-how. US, China, and Italy as well. Now, we're able to do this because we have been able to develop the know-how through Verti, and we can roll that out elsewhere. That it has so much value, and perhaps you would have to look at how much gain we have there in the accounts of Verti. We just need to see how we can actually see how we can pull forward. We're constantly reinvesting in our business. In that February, we submitted all of the paperwork to the Chinese supervisor, and all the feedback that we've had from the central supervisor. We submitted all of the paperwork to the Chinese supervisor, and all the feedback that we've had from the central supervisor. As it is a big, complex country, they have a central supervisor, they have a provincial supervisor, and a local supervisor. And all three of those levels of supervision have told us, and me personally actually, that Mapfre's application is all correct. And this is just a question of time. The process that has been followed through internally for us to be given the license. It's true that time has gone by and we haven't yet had it, and we are getting restless. So we're waiting final license. Once you've been able to demonstrate between 12 or 16 months after that you've been able to demonstrate between 12 or 16 months after that you get the pre-license that you actually are in a position to be able to actually provide the service and deliver those insurance policies. So that's the next phase. So we have moved forward with our preparations there, but we still need to get that preliminary license, and then we'd get the final license. And the last question about changes, and Pablo, you know, our new adaptation and, of course, new regulation makes you change things. Mapfre has always been very stringent with regard to corporate governance in our company. We've always tried to react, and new adaptation and, of course, new regulation makes you change things. Mapfre has always been very stringent with regard to corporate governance in our company. We've always tried to react and adapt what we're doing as quickly as possible, not just to the new CNV Capital Enterprises Act, Unified Code of Governance, but we believe that all of the recommendations are valid, and we are reducing the number of board directors. We will end up with 17 at the end of this year. Used to be 20, and we also have 2 foreign directors from different professional backgrounds. Very quickly, therefore, Mapfre has been able to adapt to all of these changes on the management side. There's been change to foreign directors from different professional backgrounds. Very quickly, therefore, Mapfre has been able to adapt to all of these changes. On the management side, there's been changes too, and we're going to make changes as and when they're necessary. Why? One reason is because we need a lot of resources all over the world as a company, and that mobility that we have means that we can move our is a hallmark of the new Mapfre. Just last year, almost 100 people in Mapfre moved to other countries. 20 of the new Mapfre. Just last year, almost 100 people in Mapfre moved to other countries. 22 different nationalities, actually. Just so that you can see how we have this cross-border movement here in Mapfre. Yes, hello. My name is Daniel from El Mundo newspaper. Going back to politics, I'd like to ask you if you agree with about the drop in the share performance, your share price. I think it's under €2, and it's one of the worst performances this year.
Well, fine. I hope you'll excuse me, but when people talk about our colleagues on
the drop in the share performance, your share price, I think it's under €2, and it's one of the worst performances this year.
Well, fine. I hope you'll excuse me, but when people talk about our colleagues on the IBEX index, well, I mean, it is an index for the stock market, and it reflects what the companies in the private sector in Spain are doing that have gone out onto the markets to raise capital. It's got nothing to do with a specific organization. It doesn't make any coordinated decisions, and it doesn't have any concerted action either. I don't know that there's any public or private stance that one could attribute to any chairman of an IBEX-listed company, myself included. Obviously, I do have my own political ideas about what might be best, but as a company, we don't have an opinion about that. We work for the best interests of the company and to create employment which is developed, whether it's under the presidency of Mr. Rajoy or Mr. Sanchez. And as Mapfre, I can't say that I have any concerns about that as long as of Mr. Rajoy or Mr. Sanchez. And as Mapfre, I can't say that I have any concerns about that as long as we're generating confidence and stability. And I hope that. And as to our share price, it's had problems, not the worst problems of all. And as to our share price, it's had problems, not the worst problems of all the listed companies. But we've seen such turmoil in the markets with the sustainability of some financial entities in Europe dragging down the results of other financial entities are involved in financial markets. We've also been dragged down by that. When banks see their share prices go down, Mapfre's does, and when the markets, we've also been dragged down by that. When banks see their share prices go down, Mapfre's does, and when the bank's prices go up, ours do, but there is a time lag and we don't go up as much. But if you look at European insurance companies, you'll see that there's been a fall in their share price across the board. Not in similar percentages for all of them, but some have fallen more, some less. But when we're talking about market prices for shares which were in the company, with the current profits, which are good and which we've explained, despite the fact they're not the best earnings we might have obtained, nonetheless, the current share price is ridiculous. With the current profits, which are good and which we've explained, despite the fact they're not the best earnings we might have obtained, nonetheless, the current share price is ridiculous. There's enormous upside to increase the value of the share, and all the analysts say that. Bloomberg, for example, recently, before this presentation of results, talked about 255, and recognizing that there was further upside, recognized that it should be a buy, and 17% said hold. So if you add that together, then you can see that there's definitely a majority that it should be a buy, and 17% said hold. So if you add that together, then you can see that there's definitely a majority in favor of holding Mapfre stock, because there's high returns for for shareholders, and definitely we're doing well if we compare ourselves against our peers. Here's Marco. Yes, José Luis Marco from Capital Madrid. 2 questions. It seems that you have justified the loss of your leadership position in insurance here in Spain because of the lesser weight of the banking channels. What are you thinking of doing about this? Are you going to increase your partnerships with Bankia or with Bankinter? And then regarding Bankia, and the possible suits that could be lodged at institutional level, could your historic partnership be affected by that?
Mapfre, and I said this already in my earlier comments, Mapfre has a lower presence in the banking channel than other entities. And of course, the banks themselves have a huge presence there because when they have their insurance companies there, and there have been additional circumstances over the last year as well. Everyone knows about them. One of the big there, but Bankia was the big one, but also CCM as well had an agreement to sell products from Mapfre. It was big one, but also CCM as well had an agreement to sell products from Mapfre. It was bailed out as well, but now it's back and operating as usual. And there was a change in ownership there as it went from private ownership to state control. But 18 months ago, a year ago, we renegotiated their distribution agreement with us, and things are perfectly normal as before. Okay, little by little, the figures are going up. But yes, the banking channel still doesn't have much weight here, and doesn't weight. With banking, have an excellent relationship, but we've even broadened out our agreement there. They're bringing in to extending and expanding our presence there in banking industry, and we would certainly like to extending and expanding our presence there in banking industry, and we would certainly like to be bigger there. Now, the question you've asked me about that possible suit or claim against Bankia, I didn't talk about that myself. We will look into the best way to defend the rights of the company. Of course, I don't know whether that means a claim or a lawsuit or a letter, whatever. It will be the board of directors that will actually analyze all of the legal options open to us. Will it affect our relationship? One thing is a claim, and the other thing is friendship. What happens if there's something you have to make a claim for when you do that? But that wouldn't, of course, never past, and it won't change in the future. Miguel Mendieta next. I want to go back again. Miguel Mendieta next. I want to go back again to the Bankia IPO. Have you commissioned a legal opinion from any external services to give you an opinion there? There has been this Supreme Court ruling in Spain, but I don't know what circumstance. Marketing new products in life and savings products. So what about unit-linked products? What sort of products do you want to market now, new ones? Well, you can understand me. Products in life and savings products. So what about unit-linked products? What sort of products do you want to market now, new ones? Well, you can understand, Miguel, that we use advisors for many things. We have to hire experts when we need legal or accountancy or IT expertise. In legal matters, it's very usual to hire outside law firms, so we get opinions as well as the opinions, the very valid opinions. We don't know that there's nothing new, but we've read the rulings that have been handed down, and they reflect the law. We don't know that there's nothing new, but we've read the rulings that have been handed down, and they reflect the lawsuits, so that doesn't have a clear impact on whether or not it's feasible or advisable. That doesn't have a clear impact on whether or not it's feasible or advisable for an institutional lawsuit. Now, the Supreme Court seems to consistently come in favor, but we have to. Yeah, but our case is rather different from that of the private suits. But our case is rather different from that of the private suits.
the private parties in those suits. But our case is rather different from that of the private suits, the private parties in those suits. And as for products, Mapfre is always bringing out new products. And under the new circumstances, we're focusing very especially on the insurance of long-term investment products, and such as unit-linked, in linked products, as you said, a kind of investment in those kinds of saver with fixed income products. And we're coming up with new versions of products that we have for saver with fixed income products. And we're coming up with new versions of products that we have for medium and long-term top-ups for retirement products. Okay, final question then. Miguel Benito from Capital Radio. The acquisition of in the London market, which is the biggest insurance market worldwide, are we going to be delighted to see that in Lloyd's there's a syndicate in which is the biggest insurance market worldwide? Are we going to be delighted to see that in Lloyd's there's a syndicate in which your part, the senior management, and in reinsurance right now, the senior management, and in reinsurance right now, Mapfre, with your brand and with your repute, don't have to go out to buy. You can offer shares in the risks. And then the Admiral, I must say, Admiral is admirable. 25% of Rastreator. The Admiral, I must say, Admiral is admirable. 25% of Rastreator. So what kind of return have you got from yours actually competing with you elsewhere? In Spain, they're working through as competitors. And would that be an opportunity for a purchase in the future? Actually competing with you elsewhere. In Spain, they're working through as competitors. And would that be an opportunity for a purchase in the future, maybe for a takeover? And why don't you turn your eyes to Africa? Look at and a French company has also taken a big stake in the biggest reinsurance company.
Building in the city, but we also have done that here, and what decided that we will buy up.
And a French company has also taken a big stake in the biggest reinsurance company.
Building in the city, but we also have done that here, and what decided that we will buy up institutional flagship buildings that will help us to have done that here, and what decided that we will buy up institutional flagship buildings that will help us to reinforce our image and position in the buy up institutional flagship buildings that will help us to reinforce our image and position in the key markets, those three key markets. It really is worthwhile doing this, not just from an institutional standpoint, because also it's a way of bringing in new revenues, rental revenues to our business. In the case of Spain, well, the building we bought here in Madrid, in Puerto de Alcalá, is to get those yields. But the other two, the London, the city, financial city building and the Boston building, this is all about in London for a long time. We cover UK and other parts of the world from London, and we also are working with products. We cover UK and other parts of the world from London, and we also are working with products. We've set up our regional hub, as I said, for all of Europe. There with Mapfre Ray in London, we have almost products. We've set up our regional hub, as I said, for all of Europe. There with Mapfre Ray in London, we have almost 1,000 people working for us in the UK, and that is really quite a significant position that we hold in the country. And that building, of course, could be used in the future for the question there, Miguel, about Ray insurance. No. Everybody has to. We have to go out there and really actually battle hard to get the business. The question there, Miguel, about Ray insurance. No. Everybody has to. We have to go out there and really actually battle hard to get the business and bring the right business back to be profitable. Well, because the because of the ratings that you get, it's usually the seeding companies that got the benefit. And I remember Mapfre did tremendous work because of the ratings that you get. It's usually the seeding companies that got the benefit. And I remember Mapfre did tremendous work because of the rating difficulties, and it was able to keep rating by the sovereign rating. Of course, we've got a much better rating now, but there's an awful lot of funding available out there and resources out there in rating. Of course, we've got a much better rating now, but there's an awful lot of funding available out there and resources out there in the reinsurance market, and people are waiting for the insurance here in Spain. It's the same case, but worldwide. And in reinsurance, Mapfre will continue have to work very hard to keep the highly profitable growth lines that we've seen this year, and there have been no catastrophe. Same case, but worldwide. And in reinsurance, Mapfre will continue have to work very hard to keep the highly profitable growth lines that we've seen this year, and there have been no catastrophe over some big disaster, such as we saw in the case of Chile and the earthquake. The question about some big disaster, such as we saw in the case of Chile and the earthquake. The question about Admiral, we have an excellent relationship. The agreement has worked very satisfactorily for both sides over recent years, and is generating this a good relationship and being able to work together and do so many things together. We were initially in this a good relationship and being able to work together and do so many things together. We were initially able to get into the United States with a different engine there, but we have this excellent insurance company in the UK with France, Italy, Germany too. And with this project, we hope to be able to take full advantage of their know-how. With our experience, there may be opportunities out there in a continent like Africa, and there will be there. But this is all about setting priorities, resources, not just opportunities out there in a continent like Africa, and there will be there. But this is all about setting priorities, resources, not just financial resources, but human resources and cultural resources are always limited. And this is another part of the world. And at some point, though, we have to be ready to actually move in there. We've done that before in other places that are very different culturally from where we operate here in Spain. I don't mean Latin America, of course, but the US, Asia, and Europe are three examples. Or what about a lovely one for the future, Mapfre?
I think that's about it then, Antonio. Yeah.
Mapfre.
I think that's about it then, Antonio. Yes, I'd just like to take 1 minute before we adjourn to come back and say that despite everything that's happened, our results have been good. We obtained them under very complex circumstances, and we have been affected by contingencies which were outside the control of the company. Those that are outside our control is outside our control, and one has to be aware that we are taking on risks every day. That's our business in insurance. It's outside our control, and one has to be aware that we are taking on risks every day. That's our business in insurance, and risks sometimes don't perform as expected, but we're satisfied with our results. Internally, we've met our milestones over the last 3 years, so that our strategy plan has obtained a high degree of delivery. And over the next 3 years, we move on as we get ready for 2020, which is just round the corner, as we get older and wiser. And in Mapfre 2020, we're sure that we will be able to continue to be proud of our solvency. We've got a very sound balance sheet, and our technical expertise is there in order to boost control. I think that growth will continue to be sound and robust, and above all profitable over the next few years. There are magnificent opportunities ahead, and the way that Mapfre operates is undergoing transformation to become better and better every day. Obviously, one can always think that profitable growth is the challenge we face, and we are sure that profitable growth is the challenge we face, and we are sure that with Mapfre's business model based on developing long-term projects along with our commitment to our shareholders with high returns on our shares, means that we are moving ahead, maintaining our promises as we have done in the past. And so thank you for coming here today and for listening. And thanks for your understanding and your support that we get throughout the year. Our idea is to make sure that what Mapfre does is well known and that people understand the insurance business better.